just had a thought. So I'm sitting here and I just started reading Isaiah 53:4. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. And then, and I said in another video, I was just talking about how the Lord had laid on him the iniquity of us all. But I just began to hear over and over again, just, I guess in my heart, and by his stripes we are healed. By his stripes we are healed. And so, and I mean, healing, it is amazing to see how much healing actually took place. Like, in one way, it's like, how, right? Because I shouldn't be here, or I shouldn't be able to, you would think that I wouldn't function the way that I do. And by his stripes we are healed. I have allowed healing to happen in my life over and over and over again. I can remember just really being hurt, and I was young. This is right before I came to the Lord. I was young, and I got hurt really badly. And stuff was just happening, triggering me in my life, because when you go through things in relationships and then things happen, for some reason, for some people, and for me, it would also trigger things, in my my family dynamic. And stuff was happening all across the board. It was also happening within my family dynamic as well. So, and it always has. It's always been issues and stuff like that there. But, I didn't really know how to turn. I wasn't, where to turn to, because I wasn't really a spiritual person yet. Like, I was spiritual, to the point where I knew that there was a God and all of these things. But I wasn't, very spiritual. And so I didn't know where to turn. And so I did the work. I went inward. I cut down on communication with people. It was limited communication, which was a really hard process for me. Being so young, you want to, be the one to go out with your friends all the time. You going out today? Yeah, girl. Let's go. And I mean, and I would go out probably, once a month and hang out with my friends on the weekends, go over to my family, my mom's and all of this kind of stuff. And so, but when I went through this, I went inward. And when I went through, going through this transition recently, I went inward. I know that a lot of people believe in reaching out, and there's nothing wrong with that. Reach out. God knows. If you need it, if you need to call somebody in your mind, you know that your mind ain't right, you're going through something, there is no shame in reaching out for help. I am for it. I believe in that. I stand for that. People would call me, my close friends or whatever, relatives used to call me for stuff like that, when they felt that way, and I believe in that. For me, though, um, a lot of training, a lot of things really did come from God. My deepest healing, it came from God. It didn't come from reaching out for me. For some it does, but for me, it came from sitting there and acknowledging what was happening at that point in my life, like stopping, literally stopping, and not moving around, not allowing others' opinions to come in, not talking too much and telling people exactly what I'm going through at that time, that is. If you want to share later or something like that, by all means, it's healing because it helps to heal other people. But for me, it's about doing the healing first and doing it in a way where I'm sitting and I know that this teaching or whatever is coming from God. And so I was young, but I sat and I had to figure it out. I was just confused about why it was happening to me. Why is this, I felt like, and at that time now, when I go through things, it's not about, oh, I don't deserve that, but I had that type of mentality before. It was like, I don't deserve that, and, it was like, who he think he is? Does he know? You know what I'm saying? He knows what he has and all of this. We get this type of chip on our shoulder. But the truth is, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you look, who you are, what you do, what you have to give. If somebody is just like that, that's a choice. It doesn't really reflect you. It's not something you did or didn't do. And that's not something I battled with this time. This transition, it wasn't, what did I do? What could I have done better? Because I'm going to tell you, I was a bit more seasoned, and I knew, with this transition, every single time I knew that I had exhausted everything that I possibly could do. Everything. I had exhausted that. Meaning, I tried it. Oh, do you wish you could have done that? No. No. Do you wish you could go back and do? No. I don't, because when I get to a certain point and I see it for myself, and usually I'm the type that waits for confirmation and then confirmation again and confirmation again. That means I've probably been run through the mill. I done already been through it, wrung out to dry, like something's wrong if I'm done with, what I'm saying, with something that is serious. So I had to trust myself. And that was the whole thing. I trusted God. I trusted all of the system of things. But I didn't trust myself enough to just move on that. Love yourself enough to move on. That should be enough. Hey, I got something going on inside that's alarming. If something ain't right. You got to be able to trust even that. Oh, you trust yourself. You got to learn to trust that because, like I said, I wait for confirmation. I'm looking for God and God is like, I put that, that the fact that you are intuitive, I gave you that for a reason. Like, go on and trust that it's there for a reason, right? And so, boy, but yeah, a lot of healing took place. And when I was learning how to use that, so young, I had to close in. I had to lock in, like my kids say, lock in, Mom. I had to lock in and really like do the work, it's work. I had to sit there and own, my mistake, that I had allowed that certain things to come in, and then I had to man up and put that certain stuff out, woman up, put it, and put it away from me, and deal with the pain of having to let it go. I had to do that, and I was young, young, living alone, just should be enjoying this time in my life. Why am I going, feeling, and but it was all God's doing. But usually the healing came from that, just doing that, and I started that. It pushed me to turn to God. So I can't say that things are bad, when you go through things like that, because it pushes you closer to God, which is where you should be in the first place. Have some type of prayer life, have God in your life. Pause and take minutes to just thank God and be grateful, because things could really be worse, and I've been through a lot of worse. But I also am aware that even with that, a lot of worse, it could be worse. And so, I remain grateful. But healing, that's what it takes. It takes for turning into yourself. And sometimes it even takes going against yourself. If you really are destructive to yourself, and, you destroy, you find yourself destroyed. When it's dealing with your soul, you got to be still, and you have to know. Because even if you're wrong, in that you can accept, ooh, something's wrong. I made the wrong decision. Now I have to go. Like, you have to, and you can't blame anybody, because even if you try with your soul, you can't get away from that. You cannot. So I don't mess around. I will cut people off when it comes to my soul. Like, if I really feel like something is bad for my soul, I will cut you off, and I won't feel bad about it. I will not feel bad, because I know that that's the way it had to be. But and like I said, I've pulled back from people before. I have pulled back before, but I didn't feel like I couldn't, like being around that person really did harm to my soul. But I did know, what I noticed was, they weren't good for me. Like, they weren't good for me, but I knew who they were. And I was strong enough to accept that people are going to be them, period. They're just, that's who they are, but it wasn't affecting my soul. Now, I didn't like what they was doing, what they was about, what they was saying, and how they was handling things and stuff like that. But I had to weigh it out. Like, is this person an important factor in my life? And am I able to still remain me, fully me around them? Are they changing me? Do they have the power to change me? And, if the answer is no, and they really matter, and, then I'll deal with you. But it's usually from a long, I'm not really, I know what it is. But if it's somebody or something, it could be anything. Person, place, a thing. It's messing with my soul. Bye-bye. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything, everyone, even the bad that has happened. all of it. But yeah, that's what healing, and that's what I kept feeling by hearing by his stripes we are healed, and that's just not for me. We are healed. We are healed. There's people that came before us that did work. They did the work. You know, Jesus is God manifested in the flesh. He did the work. He taught. He taught us how to love one another, and we still don't listen to that. He taught us how to live, you know, live with integrity. Just, you know, he taught us a lot of things. And then on top of him teaching us these things selflessly, traveling around, just teaching, just, you know, used his life for that. And after he did all of that, he laid his life down for us. He had to do that. What you talking about? He could have. He didn't have to do that. Imagine how powerful the power that he had on the inside. He was God in the flesh. So he laid his life down humbly. Didn't complain. Just did it. And here we'll complain through one traumatic situation. I'm not saying that that's weak, but I'm just saying that we can heal from it. We can heal if we do the work.